Present. Episode 29. You ready to do this, buddy?
I'm ready, baby. Let's get it going.
We're going to title this one Staying Present. Present. Kind of, you know, like that RESPCT song.
Like Jackson 5 type shit?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're hitting one of those.
I'll roll with it. I like it. Yeah, staying present, stay in the moment. And I definitely think we got some great takeaways that would be very valuable for our listeners.
Well, I don't know a person in the world who doesn't struggle with that outside of, no, actually, Liam struggles with staying present just as much, whether it's the stress of, work or, having new kids like we have and trying to manage that. There's always that thing that keeps our mind preoccupied. But what we're coming to realize is that's really taking away the attention from the most important part of the moment, which is the now.
Yeah, it's just thinking too much about the future, right? The unknown, and it gets your mind moving, thousands of miles an hour. When what reality should be is, do maybe something you can control right now. Focus on the things around you right now. Don't stress about the future, and then don't dwell on the past, because that's definitely not something you can change now.
Well, and that's that feeling that the anxiety comes from, as I've recognized, is that change can only happen in the present moment, because in the present moment you can take action on something. And when you're thinking about something outside of your current moment, there is a feeling of helplessness that comes from that, because you can't do anything about it. You can't live off like wishing you would have did something differently, or hoping that you were in a current situation that you're currently not in, when it comes to the types of goals you have, or what you think you should be doing but you're not there yet. Like, those causes a lot of internal struggles that we would never have to deal with if we just stayed focused on the present.
Yeah, it's putting not needed pressure on yourself to deliver on something that is out of your control, that hasn't even happened yet. So great first takeaway is don't stress about the past, don't stress about the future, focus on the now and control what you can't control right at that moment, and execute.
The transition would be the way to do that is through a sheer amount of focus. And for us, the transfer conversation to what we do here as a micro gym, as a warehouse gym, is that we recognize that high intensity builds focus. Like, you can't be unfocused and do well under the pressure of high intensity. It just doesn't work. If anything, you do worse.
Yeah, it's just like these high level athletes, right? They don't let the moment get too big for them. If you go to a high level athlete, a basketball player, for instance, and he's shooting a free throw, he doesn't take that free throw, any different from if it was just him shooting in the gym, or if you've had, millions of people watching him on the NBA finals, right? He doesn't make that moment any bigger than it should be. He kind of keeps it dialed in and shoots the free throw like it's just him in the gym, because at the end of the day, it's another free throw, no matter how many people are watching it.
And likewise is that you can see the lack of focus occur through physiological changes. And in training, it's really easy to identify. It's loss of speed. It's a
movement,
loss of technique. It's lack of posture coming into the next lift. You can see those, and for me, those are warning signs to get to that athlete as soon as possible and get them something to put them back in the present moment, because otherwise, we are a high risk training program, meaning that if you don't stay focused, you will get hurt. And so there's an impetus that we have to ensure that these athletes at all times are staying focused on the demand that we're giving them.
Yeah, a simple cue is just, hey, slow down a little bit. Don't get going too fast to where you're doing some stuff not to do, right? And that's just not of their, some athletes that have bad technique in general. It's just like, hey, you're moving a little too fast. You're not paying really attention. We know this stuff, so let's dial it back and let's bring them back down to earth. And he's like, hey, let's focus on this right now.
The other way to do this, especially with beginners, is to help them strategize workouts. The most exciting part about our program is the hardest part about our program, and that's that we deliver workouts that are unknown and unknowable, that even if they knew what the workout's in, they don't truly know what it's going to feel like until they're in the moment. And so what we try to do with these individuals is to create the feeling before it ever happens and how to control that feeling through strategy. So 50 wall balls came up the other day. We don't go 50 straight through, right? Like, what does that breakdown look like for your current capacity? And that's really hard for beginners because they don't even know their current capacity, where with advanced athletes, they know how many they can go unbroken at which weight, at which heights. So with these individuals, to allow them to stay focused in that moment, you have to give them small chunks of focus through strategy.
Yeah, no, the strategy, prepares them. Hey, it's not a matter of if this moment is going to come to where you're gasping for air and you're panicking. Hey, that's going to come. Really so good, yeah. when it does, we're doing our best jobs as coaches to prepare them for this. So when they're 30 wall balls in and it's getting super, super hard, they're like, hey, you know what? The coach just told me about this. This is what he meant, right? And then that's their little instant, it's staying in the present, like, hey, this is how I rebound from that moment.
And that goes to what we said is like there's an expectation it will get hard. And the most surprising thing for me, even to this day, is that people get surprised that it gets hard. Like, that is the purpose. The growth occurs through that struggle. And how can we work through that uncomfortability to hopefully make it be stronger on the other side? That's a fitness skill. That's a life skill. It's a requirement that growth cannot happen without some form of stressor. I mean, it's physiology 101. It's anatomy 101. It's how successful businesses make it the way they do through trial and error and the struggle that comes from that. And we want people to understand that that is part of the process, and it's completely okay, even though we take on that risk from the physicality side of things when we're throwing bars overhead or getting athletes upside down, that if we can do it in a manner that is logical and has a standard set in place, they're going to be good. They're going to be, if not good, not better.
Yeah, no, that's a great takeaway. Not only is it our job to prepare them for that, but also to encourage them to go do something that makes them a little bit uncomfortable, right? To push them towards that, to get them to realize, hey, that's when growth does occur. So not prepare them for the uncomfortable, but encourage, them to go out, do something that makes them uncomfortable, whether it's inside the gym or outside the gym.
You reminded me of something. It's called the razor's edge, and it was explained to me by one of my tennis coaches, and he said that the razor's edge is that moment, like if you're a tennis player and you're Rafael Nadal and you hit the ball and it tips the net, it hit the ball, tips the net and goes on his side, he's a genius. If he hits the ball, hits the net, comes back to his side, he was dumb for making the move. And so we're always playing the razor's edge with what we're trying to do here. And that's how can we push them beyond their comfortability so much to get improvement, but not so much to get them hurt.
Yeah,
and
scare them off.
We're all playing that game. We're all playing the razor's edge. And but it's important.
Yeah, and I just want to add that you do a great job as a person. You've done that with me as a coach, as I see you do it to members, but just an example, when we spoke to Golden Gate High School, you kind of put me on the spot. Hey, you're going to do this, you're going to demo this, get ready. I'm like, oh shit, all right, let's do it. But that, just putting me on the spot like that forces me, to get a little uncomfortable. And I mean, afterwards, I'm like, thanks for doing that,
Yeah, it's uncomfortable in the moment, but having not scripted that made you better because of it. Because if I would have told you that on the front end, you wouldn't have had to go through that little struggle, whatever it was, a few minutes to kind of like, oh shit, what am I going to do? What cues am I going to use to put him in that situation? And you were better for it.
Yeah, and then you've done that here numerous times. Hey, let's do a call. You're going to call him. I'm like, all right, let's do it. But that just a good takeaway is you do a great job at putting people in that uncomfortable position that damn well like it's going to be a growth experience for them. Yeah. And that's a great awareness on your part on playing the card like that.
Thanks. And you remind me of what's even more important than all that is to give them why you did it after. It wasn't like, I didn't want to put you out there to embarrass you when you try to coach those athletes. It wasn't to try to embarrass you on the phone. It was to be like, okay, you know why I did this? Because I care for you, and the best way to teach you is through action. And that's what I try to put people through. But it has to be followed up with love. Because if you tell an athlete to do something and they do it incorrectly, and you don't tell them why they did it or how it happened that way, they'll become offended and you lose their trust. And that's just as important to me.
Yeah, that just comes to the person being coachable and understanding where your intentions are, right? If the coach's intentions are good, the athlete has to realize that, and they will reap the benefits of getting forced into an uncomfortable situation, but coming out the other side a little bit stronger.
100%. One of the things I think what's unique about this is that one of the things that pulls our attention away with a lot of this stuff we do that we talk about all the time is social media. And I've understood for a really long time that social media is a tool, and like any tool, you got to learn how to use it. What's difficult sometimes with this tool is that it's constantly evolving, meaning there are new applications, there are new forms. Like Facebook is just not it's all encompassing, right? Like Instagram has become it's not a photo sharing site anymore. It's all encompassing. And so these proliferate our life where we have to learn how to navigate the tool, right? Mm-hmm. And my common metaphor is that the tool, the hammer, can be used to drive a nail into the wall and use it for function to hang something. But the hammer has been used to kill people, right? Mm-hmm. It has been misused and abused. And so what we want to do is, how do we use, right? Because what we do here, you will not survive as a trainer, as a fitness facility, if you do not manage social media properly. You have to use that to your advantage. But the disadvantage of it is, does it control your life? Do you use it as a tool, a comparison that causes a negative feeling? I think comparing your things to social media is a good thing when you use it well. Like, hey, I saw a CrossFit gym doing this. That's a great idea. I want to use it. That's comparing 101, right?
Yep.
But not comparing they're there and I'm here and I feel bad for myself. And so we have to learn how to use that and control that, where it has a positive outcome on our life, but it doesn't control our present moment.
Yeah, there's a time and a place for it, like for that and everything. When you're doing yourself a disservice when you're caught up in your phone and the people around you physically are suffering from it, right? Whether it's at the dinner table, we let opportunities to kind of talk to people, socialize with people physically, because we're caught up in socializing and networking online on our phones. Mm-hmm. And just it's kind of a good segue to get into my situation I was at the other night. That kind of brought this topic about. Is I was in the hot tub in my community, just kind of do some recovery stuff. It's been a long week of training, so I was trying to recover. And anyway, so I'm there, and I'll go there. I'll bring my phone on me. I'll either browse Instagram or I'll put on a podcast or something. But normally I'm just kind of to myself, right?
Yep.
So I'm down there, and then there's a guy in there, and so I kind of just took advantage of the opportunity to, hey, let me meet this guy. Like, what's his story? Stuff like that. Just I was actually interested in learning about who this guy is. Could have been anyone, right? And just to kind of pinpoint where my head was at was just take advantage of the opportunity to learn about somebody new and stay present of my physical surroundings in that hot tub, instead of getting mentally cooped up into Instagram or something like that.
Yeah, and what's interesting there is that you would have never had that situation if you weren't willing to put yourself out there, right? Because it is easier to just put yourself in front of a phone and scroll yourself mindlessly. It's easier. That's why people do it. The situation you put yourself in is very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It requires a sense of vulnerability. Like, who's this guy? He might not even want to talk to me, and I might have to get the cold shoulder. Like, you put yourself out there, but you created experience that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, because I've been in the hot tub before with other people, and we were all so easy to just get cooped up in our phone and not say a word to each other. Everyone just did their own thing, and it's a little awkward because it's not a huge hot tub,
right.
But like you just said, it's easy to kind of get distracted and not like open conversation or anything like that, because that's the easier route to go. Like you just said, it's being a little vulnerable to try to learn about someone, to try to talk. You know, you're scared of an awkward conversation, anything like that. But you know, it was just like a different sense of awareness that came to mind. Like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna you know, try to talk to this dude.
Well, and that kind of reminds me of our date night rule that we have every week, is that we cannot be on our phones.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot be on our phones, because it's going to limit the opportunity to have some great conversations, or to stare in each other's face and talk about things. How's things going at home? How's work? Like, you know what I mean? And we wouldn't have those opportunities because the mindlessness that comes from the phone. And you know, it has a purpose and it serves a purpose, but you know, we have to use that with discretion, and that's hard sometimes. I think it's a battle that will continue. I don't think there's not a point of arrival with that, right? Because there are certain days where like we could care less about our phones, and there's other days we can't let it go. And I think that's that counterbalance that we're going to constantly keep having to deal with in order to feel like, on average, there's still a positive outcome from this thing, that we're still getting something good out of it. It's not affecting my personal relationships. I'm still getting things that are helping with the business, or referrals, or putting my name out there.
Yeah, you can solely build a business on social media. Like, I've seen it time and time again on people that build their businesses through social media, right? So the tools are there to use it as a success tool, but you know, like you just said, the hammer reference, right? There's also that, you know, the ability to kind of get sucked into it to where it's doing more harm than good.
Well, and I just hate extremes on any conversation. Like, the purists say, don't even have, you know, apps on your phone. Get a flip phone. Like, I've heard all the most ridiculous things.
You tried something like that, didn't you? You got like a...
Yeah, but that was... No, time out. That was because I was cheap, and I didn't want to pay the extra $50 they were paying for data. Totally different, dog.
You got like a iPhone 2 or something like that? Yeah, it was a ghetto.
But they were still charging me the same rate for the cheaper phone because of the data plan. I was like, this is stupid. And then I upgraded to the other phone.
But I think you said, like, you were trying to spend less time on social media on that, no?
I agree, but I've done other things to maneuver that. One is, what apps on... You could go to your setting page on your iPhone and find out how many usage you're getting a week on your phone. It'll say like 3 hours Instagram or whatever. And I realized I was doing the most on Facebook. And so what I did is I just deleted the app. So anytime you ever see anything posted on Facebook,
you're on your computer.
It will be a web browser, or it would have been reshared from Instagram. So
okay.
It's the only way you're going to see a Facebook post from me. So that gave me a little bit more balance. But I think too is like the Gary V's. I love him to death, but it doesn't seem like he's ever off his phone. And that's not the balance that I want, because I think that's like documenting your life is really important, but it's also a very extreme version of social media, and that's that everything you do needs to be documented. And I don't think that's the extreme I want to take, because there are private matters that I just want to keep private, and I always have to pick and choose, you know, which things I'm going to document and share. Like what I post on Facebook is for people that I want to share privately. I unfollow people all the time, because one of the things I want to talk about with what I think is most important about social media is self-awareness. Is having the self-awareness of is what I'm doing causing a negative outcome or a positive outcome. Number one, if you're scrolling through social media and you see someone's post and you have a negative thought about that person or something else, it is a clear indicator that you should not be attached or associated to them anymore. Just click unfollow and don't deal with that anymore. Because I think what we need to use as a tool is for positivity. And if you're not getting that through your feed, then I would highly, highly suggest you really start to audit your feed and block people, unfriend people. I have no shame to do that, because what I want to use that role of social media as a positive effect. When I wrote a blog post a couple days ago, is about comment or modern day stalking. And what's happening right now is that you can legally stalk people online, but if you do that offline, you'll go to jail, right? And I have friends that use wives' accounts to stay on social media, though they think it's the devil. Like, they can't do that. Like, it either is you think it has a positive benefit or it doesn't. But you can't do that. Like, and those are the people that make social media bad, because they're using social media as a way to find something bad about it to talk about how bad it is.
Yeah, and it's mostly people that don't really have any sense of direction in life, where they get the turned on by bringing other people down, throwing the negative stuff out there to give negative reactions to people. I put on a post on my story the other day talking about being present, what we're talking about now, and I had a buddy that started bashing me about it, right? And it literally started pissing me off because I got excited for it. It was a genuine
You were
post.
hoping it was going to help other people.
And it did. People were hitting me up hey, you are an inspiration, stuff like that. And I got one buddy that said something sarcastic about it. So I was like, yo, man, don't get blocked. That's what I said, just like that. I said, don't get blocked, man. It'd be real tragic. Because I do know, even though he's saying shit,
that's hilarious.
There is value in my posting, right?
Yeah.
So I literally said, yo, don't get blocked, man. It would be tragic. And he shut up shut up just like that.
You said what I just do. No, and I think that it goes back to that is there's still truth in that sarcasm, right? And that's that he's at some point he probably doesn't like what you're doing or is judging every move you make, and that's sad because that's not our purpose. We don't do what we do and spend all the hours that we do on our feet, for ourselves. We do it because we want to help other people, right? And I said that the other day is. I was listening to a podcast, and he says the role of the coach is to inspire learning, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we're doing. Why? I don't write the post for myself. If that was the case, I just write private journals and enjoy my own writing.
Yep.
No, I do it because I feel like it can help somebody else. It's the way we create videos and content, the podcast, everything that we're doing. And so when it doesn't produce that outcome, then you have to really figure out what's going on here, right? And a lot of that just takes an immense level of self-awareness because it takes a lot of vulnerability. It takes a lot of awkwardness to try to deal with that. We talked about the awkwardness of dealing with tough conversations, right? Mm-hmm. And how tough that is, but there's no other way around it. You can't have a nice, gentle conversation to get through something that you're struggling with. The struggle of the conversation to get to something great on the other side. That's what makes it great and makes it much more special. And the same thing could be said for social media as well. So it's tricky, man. I think it's a conversation we'll have next year that we'll have learned tremendously from this year with. And it's just, some days I want to run on an island and not be on social media. Mm-hmm. And other days you'll see me post 20 times a day. And it's about how do I find that magic balance? And I think that's what we're all trying to do.
I think that's a great place to stop, man. I don't even want to add to that. That was good. That was a great takeaway.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for the topic today. We appreciate you guys. We'll jump back on episode 29 next week.
All right. See you.
Okay.